everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Kinky Politics with Chris
Woohoo!
and I. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic, especially in this post Trump world: how to talk to someone else who has different political beliefs than you.
Ooh, dun dun dun.
Yeah.
This is a crazy one. This is a really good one to talk about because we're so divided right now. And you know, as I look at my friend pool on Facebook and my friend pool on Instagram, I'm realizing I'm getting rid of all my Republican quote unquote friends, which is so sad because I loved them before. And it's like, what happened? Did they change? Are they different people?
Yeah.
Not really. You
Yeah.
know, they're not really different people.
Yeah.
So please kick us off with that. Tell us your 2 cents.
Well, I think I think that's a fundamental thing we have to learn how to do if we're going to not just keep devolving. Because even my friends because I'm from rural Indiana, grew up in a small town in Indiana, so most of my friends from back home are Republicans. Even my relatives or friends from back home that vote Democrat, they're not exactly progressives. I'll say they're more centrist in a lot of ways. And more progressive states like California or Colorado or places like that, they might be kind of viewed or looked at as Republicans by a lot of Democrats because some of their positions they have. Like your Joe, well, maybe not Joe Manchin type, but you know what I'm saying. Like Joe Manchin is a Democrat. So, and then so is Bernie Sanders. And there's a wide gulf between there. And then on the Republican side, you have kind of different wings of the party as well. But I notice when they talk, sometimes if they're talking about the same thing, they will use different language. And they're kind of taught like if you hear somebody saying the word liberty right now, which is a term that is very fundamental to American society, American ideology. If you hear somebody say that word liberty right now, you already are like, depending on which side of the aisle you fall on, you're already starting to get stereotypes in your head. You're starting to get walls up. You're starting to form attacks, like
Yes,
just based on that word.
yes.
And that's not even a bad word, but
No.
these are it happens like on the right side of the aisle too. Like if my left, if you say the word like inequality or something like that, it automatically just triggers them. Like walls go up. So and then a lot of times like when you will hear somebody talking to somebody from the other side and then they'll report back to you like what that person thinks or what that person said, it's not even in any way shape or form like remotely accurate because it's like they're reporting to you what they think about that person, not they're not actually listening to the person talk and then kind of trying to understand what that person thinks because these words are like so polarizing to us. So I think it's important that we learn how to talk to people that don't agree with us. And, when they say these words, we need to try to understand what they mean when they say those words.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. I don't think we really disagree too much on this issue. I think really um, the challenge is how to have a conversation during this yes, post-Trump era or during this woke era or during this Me Too era.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, during this politically correct era, how do we really entertain the conversation
Yeah.
or entertain conversations because it can be really challenging. Alternative facts are a
Mm-hmm.
thing now, which is so hard for me. Everybody seems to have Everybody's always had an opinion, but now everybody seems to know everything about politics or know everything about science. And you know um nobody seems entirely uh even the scientists or the politicians, no one seems to have authority,
Hmm.
or at least be respected as an authority.
Yeah.
So, and I think that has to do with this time that we're just in this whole, like, truth revealing type of a time.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like, how do we have these conversations with people who think differently than us, or who, you know, yeah, who think differently than us, or maybe are on the, you know, are have a different political ideology than you might have.
Yeah.
Um, I think, I don't know, what would you say to that? I got a couple thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, you know, I live in the Denver, Colorado area. It's the Democratic Party in this area is much more on the progressive side than the centrist side. And you have quite a few socialists that are involved in the Democratic Party here as well. So I hear a lot of more left messaging a lot. So terms I'm hearing a lot here where I live is white supremacy, patriarchy, things like that, right? Those are not the phrases that people use in the Democratic Party when they're talking politics in like Illinois, Indiana, or Iowa. So if you are going to like go into those communities and start trying to tell them like, the problem with America is the white patriarchy, they're not going to, I mean, you're just going right over their head. You have to speak the language they speak. So, that kind of changes in different areas of the country. Down in the South, they're much more religious. So if you can frame your, political messaging, you can frame leftist political messaging through religion, as Martin Luther King Jr. had proved, and reach religious people in the South. But if you go down there and you're using like talk about feelings and trigger safe spaces and trigger warnings and stuff like that, you're losing them because they don't care about trigger warnings. They don't care about feelings. You have to know the audience you're speaking to and speak the language they speak. Because if you go into, where I'm from and you start talking about, safe spaces, it's going to be like going over to, I don't know, China and speaking German to somebody. They're not going to understand you because you're not speaking the language they speak. They might understand some words, but they're not going to understand everything you say. So I think that's the main thing we have to start doing is just if you're talking to a conservative and you want to, if you're talking to a conservative about something and you want to have a conversation about something, you need to try and understand that you need to be talking about how we're going to save money. How is this immoral? Because usually they're big on morals, they're big on saving money, and don't talk about feelings. Or if you're talking to a socialist, don't talk about how this is going to save money. They don't give a shit about that. Talk about how this is going to help black and brown people, or how this might help poor people, or you have to learn how to frame things in a way that's going to be seen as positive and like a win for the person you're talking to as well. Because if they don't think it's going to benefit them in any way, shape, or form, why are they going to care? It has to be something that you have to put it in terms where this is going to benefit you in some way, instead of just like, because I feel like a lot of the way we talk about politics now is like, I want to get you to do what I want to do. And I want you to basically bow down and admit that I am right and I am superior to you and your ideology is bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's the way we talk to each other now. And it's like, I mean, we can keep going about that, but I think nobody, right, left, or center, is happy with the way our politics are progressing. And until we start trying to talk to people like with respect, dignity, and like trying to speak to them in their language, I don't see how that's ever going to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you said it sort of, at least what I kind of pull is like, it's that quote, which is seek to understand rather than be understood.
Mm.
So it's like, if you want to be understood, that's it. If you want to be understood, seek to understand.
Yeah.
And that goes along with talking to someone in their language. But I think I also think sometimes you can't talk to people in their language,
Mhm.
you know, like sometimes you can't, you know, like I think like in a lot of respects, I think you have to be talking to the language, for example, the language of an oppressor, you have to be talking to them in their language, which
Mhm.
is why I'm not really in the same vein of like nonviolence. If violence needs to happen, then I'm happy for it to, not happy, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that's the way it needs to go, right? For someone who's violent.
Mhm.
Um, but in the same breath, I think these conversations, like I realize like there are a few friends. Like I had a really close friend in college who now lives in Iowa. She's raising kids on a farm.
Mhm.
She's got a husband, and she's originally from Indiana, and I
Mhm.
know she's Republican,
Mhm.
and I love her. And we always had a great time together. We'd hit up the bars. She was the epitome of like a best friend.
Mhm.
And I wanted her as my maid of honor growing up. Like, and we sort of drifted apart like as time kind of like went on. And, you know, a lot of her views started to change, but she's still the same person. And I
Mhm.
know she is. And every time I want to delete her as a friend, because I'm like, I don't want this messaging on my page anymore. I'm also like, but I love her. I like, even though she's saying some things I don't agree with, I still love her.
Yeah.
And even if it's like she never outwardly comes out and is like, oh, Trump is my guy or anything like that. I don't know that she even like supports him necessarily. But even if she might, I still would think in the back of my mind that she still is amazing,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's what stops me from deleting her as a friend. So the only way I think I've been able to have really good conversations with people who think differently than me is to, as you're doing, seek to, as you're saying, which is talk to someone in their language. And if I can't do that, if I cannot do that, then I will ask questions. You know,
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, what is that about? Or like, have you, you know, these sort of non coded questions where they're just they don't, I'm not seeking for a particular like, I'm not seeking a particular answer.
Mhm.
I'm hoping for a particular answer, but I'm not seeking one. I'm just trying to catch that person off guard and have them move their guard or their, you know, defensiveness by any means, because, you know, obviously a lot of people know where I stand politically.
Yeah.
And having those type of conversations always kind of puts someone who thinks differently than me on the defense. So I understand.
Mhm.
um, but what has helped me is just asking questions
Yeah.
and not coming in with my own opinion or not coming in with my own take on her or his response. I've just been like, okay. And just constantly asking questions until it kind of tires them out, one, or two, because I'm good at that. I can keep it going, man.
Yeah.
Or two. I know you know.
Write it
Or
down.
two, yeah, or two, it will make them want to then start, it'll make them feel good because they'll feel heard and listened to,
Yeah.
and then they'll start to want to ask me questions.
Yeah.
And then after we've had a whole bullshit of questions, the likelihood is we've probably stopped the conversation. The next time I talk with them, the conversation will be really good because we've settled this ground where we realize that we want to get to the humanity of who we are first before we try and disagree, so that we know that it's not that we hate each other,
Yeah.
it's that we're trying to understand each other.
Yeah.
So that has helped me. It doesn't always work with people who are sort of stuck in their defensiveness or stuck in their ideology.
Mhm.
But I have found that majority of the time it does work. I haven't tried this conversation. I haven't tried this tactic yet with her, my girlfriend. But I know she was a psych major. So I
Oh,
know that if we were to have a conversation like that, I know it would be good. I know it'd be really positive. I also know that she would be like, I don't want to have this conversation with, she's that type who's like, I know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Don't even try and, so she's smart. She's very clever.
Yeah. Having had that conversation many times, I can say there's, there are some flags to look out for so you don't waste your time. Because some people, as you pointed out, are just going to be drunk on the Kool-Aid. There's nothing you can do. You can't get through to them. Like, it's just impossible. It might be a relative, it might be a friend, it might be a coworker, but if they're repeating some QAnon type stuff, or if they're like super defensive of Trump, probably gonna be a little drunk on the Kool-Aid. If they're talking about like small government and tax breaks, that's probably a conservative that you can probably have some good conversations with once you guys kind of get through some of the brainwashing that's kind of been put into your heads through media and all that stuff over 20, 30 years. But if they're talking about Trump, how great Trump is, that's a different that one's hard.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that the how great Trump is much easier to have a conversation. The how great Trump is people. Mm-hmm. It's easier for me to have a conversation with them than it is with the QAnon folk. Because I feel that a lot of Trump people, after enough, like, why?
Yeah.
After enough of like, oh, okay, why? They don't know what to say, so they're like, I don't fucking know. Like, you're right. I don't know, Yeah. And so, but that's only if I haven't disclosed in a really strong way my views about him, Yeah. But yeah, I agree. A lot of times with the people who are with the Kool-Aid, like there are some people too with the Kool-Aid with Democrats.
Oh yeah.
Democrats, black Democrats, you will find are like Obama. Mm. And it's like, bitch, there's been some things here that we need to talk about, Yeah. So like I have a friend who actually a very close friend who I love and respect and admire. Mm-hmm. But she's on the Obama Kool-Aid and I'm cool with it. Because I like Obama too. But I'm also like, as a president though, let's have a conversation about that, like let's dig a little deeper to what all this means, and that's always hard to shift. But I think, she gets closer and closer to realizing that I'm trying to say, like, no one's perfect. Yeah. No one's perfect. No one's perfect. No one's perfect. We can't idolize this man. He's doing the best he can and I love him and he's great and blah, blah, blah. But also there's been some bullshit, Yeah. So.
Yeah, that was the thing that was weird with Obama is like everybody like, because Bush had his stuff that happened with like the torturing, and then Clinton had the blowjob scandal, and then Obama came in and they were like, oh, see, Obama, no scandals, didn't do anything wrong. And I was like, dude, what? I mean, like, okay, there was some stuff, like there was some stuff that he did. It was shady. Like,
yeah. We can often get blindsided because, he was the change. He was new change. He was different change. He was unique change. He was change we've never had before. And then he didn't have any problems like in a public sense, we didn't see any You're right. We didn't see any scandals. He's got this perfect kind of little nuclear family going on, and he just seems fucking perfect, and but
especially after 8 years of hearing George Bush talk and then getting to hear Obama talk.
I know, but what's so crazy is like now it's so funny because we just talked about like, demonizing. Look at the way we now look at George Bush.
Oh yeah, they're turning him into like like
Oh
he was
God.
FDR or something. Like,
Yes.
it's like what?
Yes.
This was the dude torturing people.
Yes. You know, it's like, oh, look, we have such a soft spot for George Bush. You remember him? He was so cute. He got hit with a shoe almost by a media personnel, and he had great reflexes. And you know what I mean? Like, oh, he was so cute. He was so funny. He was just such an idiot, you know, but he was a great guy. Great guy. You know, it's like when before we're like, shit, oh my God, he's killed the economy. 9/11, oh, you know, like, this is the worst president in the history, blah, 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 blah. Now we're like, oh, look at him. Look, he's cute. Look at his little ass.
I feel like Kanye is going to come out and do a video. I was wrong. George Bush does care about black people.
Yeah, exactly. That's about to happen.
He handled Katrina so well.
So well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But
it is. But I you know, I think it does happen on both sides of the fence where you've got, you know, people on the left, people on the right, people conservative, people progressive, who are, you know, you can't have conversations with them, or you're trying to have conversations with them and somehow you can't reach them. You know, I constantly see a friend of mine who grew up in Pennsylvania in a conservative family. And one of his brothers is like serious Republican, like Boston Tea Party type Republican, you know what I mean? Which is like, hey, you know, and it's funny because my friend, who I'll name on here because he's so awesome, Jordan Kubat, who also was a photographer for my wedding, and I've known him for a really long time. He's one of my best friends and a standout of a father, a standout of a husband, and just a standout friend. He saved me from so many fucked up situations with an ex-boyfriend. I'll never forget him. So Jordan Kubat, if you're watching this, I love you and I respect you, and I'm watching you. You make me so proud to be your friend. He constantly goes back and forth with his brother on Facebook, you know, a public forum. And his brother is just so fucking ignorant is the best word. But it's weird because he's smart. Yeah. Super smart. Super duper smart, but ignorant, you know, and can eloquently speak about his ideas, you know, and Jordan is constantly going back and forth with him on these public posts. And I can see Jordan aging at his computer, you know, talking to his brother of all the people, you know, you'd hope it's someone who's like, you know, just your friend or an acquaintance or something, but it's his brother, you know. And I think to myself, that's so difficult, you know. I wish he could phrase those questions and just be like, why, but what about that, and why, and when that happened, and why, you know what I mean? So anywho, bottom line, I guess the takeaway for this is, what would you say?
Takeaway would be, know who you're speaking to, speak their language.
Okay.
And if you want them to kind of understand you, you got to try to understand them.
Yes. And if you're needing some help with the pathway on how to have them be understood, ask them questions, because that's how you understand things, and that's how people think they're being understood. Yeah. Is when you engage them in questions that they can answer. So, and on that note, take us out.
All right, guys, that's another episode. And season 2 is off to a fun start. We'll be back in another week with another episode. Until then, have a good week.
Bye.
Oh my God. Orange is not my new black.